Hi, you said your name is Gary?
Yep, my name is Gary.
All right, nice to meet you, Gary. Thank you for doing this interview. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how open-minded would you say you are?
Scale of 1 out of 10, how what?
Open-minded would you say you are?
Open-minded. I'm pretty open-minded. I would say 7.
7? All right, cool. Do you think you should look at both sides of an argument before making a decision on what's right?
Yes.
All right. Do you trust your senses?
Of course.
All right. Do you trust the government?
No and yes.
All right. Do you think the majority is always right?
The majority is not always right.
All right. How do you believe everything came to be? Like, do you believe in creationism? Do you believe in the Big Bang, or do you just not really have a belief in it?
I believe that there was creation before. With anything, there has to be creation.
So like a higher power or
I
something?
believe in higher power.
All right. What would be your definition of science?
My definition of science, everything must be created, and without creation, there is no form.
Would you agree with this, that science should be observable, measurable, testable, and repeatable?
Of course.
All right. Do you think science should ever be a closed book?
No, it's always open.
All right. What do you believe is the difference between a belief and a knowing?
A belief is something that you have hopes in, and knowing is something that's facts.
All right, like a knowing would be like me and you are here talking right now. Two people are talking on this bench.
There's something that's happening in action right now.
All right, and this next question, like I said, this is where it kind of gets weird or whatever, and I don't like whatever your belief is. I mean, hey, it is what it is, but I'm going to challenge it or whatever. But I mean, like I said, we go our separate ways, believe whatever. This next question, do you think this is a belief or a knowing to you? Do you believe the Earth is an oblate spheroid? Do you believe it's flat, or do you believe it's without form or some other type of shape?
I believe it's so I feel like the world would be more of a sphere.
Like an oblate spheroid, like we're taught?
A sphere, yeah, like we're taught.
Like
the sun and the moon is a sphere. I feel like all planets has that kind of,
like they're round?
Yeah, round.
You know what a logical fallacy is?
No.
I'll give you an example. If I put if we were on a tennis court right now, and I threw a bunch of tennis balls on a tennis court, would that make the tennis court a round ball?
It would still be a round ball.
The tennis court would be a round ball?
No, it wouldn't. The tennis court would be a round ball.
So would you agree that just because everything's a circle in the sky, does that mean that we're on a ball?
Yeah. I mean,
that's illogical. We just agreed on the tennis court thing, though, right?
I mean, not with the tennis court. More so. I'm sorry, you asking me if the planet's a sphere? Or?
Well, I mean, you see 2D in the sky. We don't see 3D. You can't really. You look at the moon, you can't really see it's a round ball. You just see a two-dimensional object. The sun, same thing. Even other planets, I can't really see 3D or 4D, whatever you want to say.
But the moon is not flat.
How do you know?
Everything has a curve. I wouldn't believe the moon would be just a flat surface, no.
Have you ever looked at it with the high-powered telescope before?
No, I've checked these telescopes out before though.
Yeah, you look. To me, it don't look like a rock. You can kind of see it almost morphing, and it looks kind of weird, like a plasma or something. I'm not claiming that's what it is, but it looks kind of weird.
Through years, a lot of meteors hit the moon. Things can cause craters.
I mean, it looks like there's definitely different shapes on the moon, and they say, crater or something or whatnot. But let me give you a few examples why I don't believe it's an oblate spheroid.
Okay.
All right. It's a known fact in science. 100% anyone can test this. Like we said, it should be able to be created in a lab. It's a known fact that any liquid, water, will take the shape of its container 1,000,000% of the time. Would you agree?
Yeah.
If the Earth's covered in over 72% water, how could it be a ball then?
Oh, right. It's not a ball because it has different surfaces.
Like an oblate spheroid. Yeah. How could it be an oblate spheroid then if water's always level?
It's not always level. It's always.
Could you give me an example then when it's not?
The Grand Canyon. It used to be water there, but now it's more so of empty surfaces, like craters everywhere.
What is it, conforming to the exterior? Have you ever seen water bend and hold form anywhere?
I probably have. High-key.
I've never. I mean, I've been on the subject for 5 years. I've never. There's a bunch of smart scientists going at this thing, and they're getting steamrolled by this subject, man.
I guess not.
All right. Do you think we breathe the same stuff in space?
No.
No? All right, would you agree? So, have you ever used a pressurized deodorant canister before, like to spray your armpits and stuff?
My armpits, yeah.
All right, so I go to science again. We live in a positive pressure system, and they say space is like a vacuum, as close to a negative pressure system as you can get. So when I go to science, it tells me it's impossible for a positive pressure system to exist side by side to a negative pressure system without a solid barrier. Like,
it would just explode, right?
Yeah, so you need, it's known in science and application that you need a solid barrier between two separate pressurized environments. Could you give me an example of two opposing pressure systems existing side by side without a barrier? Have you ever seen anything that would prove that's even close to being possible?
I couldn't even tell you.
No?
No.
All right, fair enough. Last point, do you know what the star Polaris is? It's in the middle of us, right above the North Pole.
Okay.
It's pretty much stationary, kind of moves a little bit. It's the only stationary star. And everything goes like perfect. The stars go geocentric circles around it.
Okay.
They go one direction in the northern hemisphere, and the southern hemisphere, they go like the opposite direction.
Okay.
All right, so basically like Aristotle back in the day believed in something called the ether. They believed the earth was round like Aristotle and them, like BC or whatever. And then but he believed in something called the ether, and then Nikola Tesla also believed in the ether, and Einstein banished the ether for the warping of space to basically make relativity, which is a theory. But basically what we believe is space and time don't bend, basically. So basically what's holding you on the ground is basically the ether, and that's what moves everything up in the sky.
Okay.
So this is basically the question. If you can, like I said, I'll give you $10 for the interview. I appreciate the interview. I'll give you 100 if you can prove me wrong. The North Star don't move, so how would you disprove that everything's spinning around us, causing the Coriolis effect? The moon would push the tides, the sun would contract the tides. They say Coriolis effect, if you shoot a bullet west, the sun will be there and it'll dip down because of the Coriolis effect. We'd say it's based off a false axiom. And if you shoot the bullet west at nighttime, the bullet will bounce up. And then, do you know the difference between the eclipses, solar eclipse and lunar eclipse?
No.
All right, solar eclipse is when the sun gets blocked out in the moon where we can see it, right? Like on a daytime.
Right.
A lunar eclipse is at nighttime where they say, can you hold both your hands out like that? Say the earth's in between your two hands. The moon's on one side, the sun's on the other side. They say in mainstream science that it's the earth's shadow. It's always curved when it blocks out the moon. It's nighttime. What we believe is space and time don't bend, and it's actually the sun blocking out the moon. Because you'd agree the sun's round, wouldn't you?
Honestly, no.
You don't believe the sun's round?
The sun at this point is more so like expensive.
Does it look round from our point of view, though, at least?
Yeah, it does.
Everything this guy looks round to me, man.
Everything looks round, high key. But from what we were talking about, now more so like everything does have like, if you look at your face, you have like, if you look closer,
contours
you
and
have
stuff on it.
Yeah, small like pores. So your face is not round.
No, I'd agree my face ain't round or whatever. It's not no perfect, but
yeah, I understand. But okay.
So I mean, would you be able to disprove that it's the sun blocking out the moon for a lunar eclipse?
I probably wouldn't be able to prove that.
Would you be able to give me an example of water conforming the exterior of a shape?
Put it in a glass.
But it's taking the shape of the container. It's not conforming to the exterior of the shape.
If you were to like freeze it, would it be able to?
Yeah, but the Earth's not like a frozen planet, would you say? It's like it's covered mostly in like fluid water, like this lake out here, the river, Troy River.
Right.
I mean, would you say this river's contained, or?
Well, yeah, because it can't go anywhere.
Yeah, it's contained, the water on there.
Right.
So to believe in a globular Earth, water is bending and holding form, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen anything that's possible, shows that's physically possible?
No, I haven't.
No?
I haven't. Not in my knowledge right now.
And the two opposing pressure systems, you've never seen anything like that?
I haven't.
No? Have you ever heard the Antarctic Treaty before? No?
No.
All right, they say, I'm not claiming no ice wall or something like that. I'm not claiming what the Earth is, but right before the space race, they made Antarctica a sovereign nation. These are all facts you can look up, like 1958. All the nations signed up for it. And a lot of people will say, oh, Russia would out the U.S. for not faking the moon missions. Well, if they're all in it together and they're all part of this Antarctic Treaty, then if they're all in it together, why would they out them, you know?
Right.
It makes no sense.
Right.
So, can you give me one proof besides like a picture? Have you ever seen the curvature of the Earth, you think?
I'm gonna definitely look it up.
I'll tell you right now, you know Neil deGrasse Tyson is?
No.
He's like top astrophysicist for like NASA or whatnot. He's like #1 guy basically. He'll tell you that there's a Red Bull high jump and it's like I think 125,000 feet. It's like 23 miles in the air. He'll admit that's a fisheye lens that you can't see the curvature for 23 miles up. I mean, you're gonna go to Google and say, oh, you can see it from like a plane. I've been on a plane. You can't see it from a plane. You know who Richard Branson is?
No.
He's like some rich billionaire. He took people up 63 miles
I was gonna say he's pretty rich.
Yeah, he took people up 63 miles high, and he also, and Neil deGrasse Tyson also went on and said, you can't see the curvature there from 63 miles in there. So you got a million people out here saying, oh, I've seen it from an airplane, I've seen it from this high, the Concorde. But Neil deGrasse Tyson's debunking them all. He's a top astrophysicist saying you can't see it from 63 miles up, and there's no one that's been higher than 63 miles up unless, hypothetically, unless space is what they're telling us, and they've been higher up than that. But I mean, no normal person's actually seeing the curvature of the Earth. Like,
right. So you'll have to be outer space in order to see the.
if they're telling us it's true, it's on outer space or whatever.
Okay.
Neil, the one thing that's weird about the Neil deGrasse Tyson quote is he says the Red Bull high jump's 23 miles in the air, and then the one's 63 miles, the Richard Branson one. But he says the Red Bull high jump would be the equivalent of being 2 millimeters above like the Earth, like on a globe, like on like a plastic globe. But then he also says the 63 miles would be like the equivalent of 2 millimeters up above it, which makes no sense because it should be like 5 millimeters if it's like over double the distance.
So the math is off.
Well, his math is off on it or whatever. When he's saying 2 millimeters, it's equivalent being 2 millimeters off when something's 23 miles high, and 2 millimeters when something's 63 miles high. That doesn't add up, but that's it pretty much. So, like I said, can you disprove what I'm saying, man?
Honestly, I probably couldn't.
You can't?
Yeah, I don't even have the knowledge I keep.
Are you gonna look in the subject?
Definitely.
Intrigued to it?
I
I say check it out, dude.
For sure. Now you got me curious about it.
Look into it, man. It'll make you think at least, man.
Okay.
I'd like to thank you very much for that, man.
All right,
Appreciate
thank you
it.
so much.